Hello everyone, welcome back to the second lecture of 30 days of Python series, right? So till now what we have discussed, so if I have to summarize till now, right? So it will be, right, till now, right? So let's try to understand what we have seen till now. So we started with introduction to programming language, introduction to programming language, right? Programming language, right? After that, we also discussed about why are we going to study Python for data science? Why Python for data science? And then we also discussed about different IDEs, right? IDEs, right? Different IDEs. So if you guys don't have watched the first lecture, please go ahead and watch the first lecture, right? And then again you can come back to this lecture. Now, what are we going to study in this lecture? So I will be putting all agenda in this lecture. But before that, if you guys remember, in the last lecture, I had given you some interview questions and food for thoughts, right? So interview questions, right? If you guys remember, since the last class was a basic class, then few of the interview questions that was important was what is a programming language? They might ask you if you are appearing for some internship positions, why Python, something like that. But one important question that I had given you in the last of previous lecture was food for thoughts, or extra mile questions, where you need to, right, you need to actually go and explore on Google about these questions. So the question I had given you, which is the fastest programming language? Which is the fastest programming language? Right. So I would request you again, please try to Google it out, right? And programming language, right? Right. And the second question was, what are disadvantages of Python? What are disadvantages of Python? Disadvantages of Python, right? These are something that I had asked you to explore, right? Now, one more question. If there are some disadvantages of Python, then still why are we using Python? This is the next question for data science. Why are we using Python for data science? Again, just think it. Try to think as much as you can. Try to explore on Google. Right. Now moving ahead, what is the agenda of this video? Right. What is agenda of this video? So from this video, we are going to understand the fundamentals of Python. Fundamentals of Python. Right. We are going to understand the fundamentals of Python. We will start with data types. Try to understand what is different data types. Try to implement that on Python as well, right? So for example, if there is integer, float, complex, string, list, tuples, we are going to implement all of those things in Python first. Second, we will also understand what is difference between, so here I will just write data types. We are also going to understand what is an interpreter language, and what is a compiler language. Both of these things we are going to study in detail in this lecture. Right. Apart from this, we are going to see the practical implementation, Python implementation of everything, whatever you, and few more concepts like static and dynamic typing. We are also going, actually this is a part of this particular fundamentals of Python. So static and dynamic typing. So that is also we are going to look at it, right? Dynamic typing. Then we also have a concept called dynamic binding in Python, right? And all of those things we are going to see the practical implementation. I will just write Python implementation or practical implementation. And in the last, as usual, we are also going to discuss interview questions interview questions, and right, extra mile questions that you have to research or try to figure it out. So that is what we are going to look at this, right, in this particular lecture, right. So let's start, right. So what is a language? We'll start with that particular basic thing. What is a language, right? What is a language? So for example, let's say if a baby is born, very simple example, let's say a baby is born, right? A baby is born. Do you think the moment this baby is born, right, the moment this baby is born, he or she will just say, hey, I am born, something like that? Is it so? The answer is no. No one is going to say soon after he or she is born that, hey, how are you doing? I am born, I am new to this world, please welcome me, right? No one is going to say like this. Right? Then what happens? What actually it happens, right? So this baby, right, start learning first some small words, right? Maybe some ma, pa, something like that, right? And then soon after, this baby is sent to kindergarten, right? In kindergarten, they start making them learn A, B, C, D, and so on. Then after that, once ABCD is done, they will try to learn apple, ball, cat, and so on. After that, they will understand sentences, I am going. They will try to learn syntax and grammar. Syntax and grammar. So this is how actually, people learn language. This is the understanding. So what is this? This is nothing but characters. Right? Right. Characters together is called as words. Words together is nothing but a statement. Right? And syntax and grammar you already know. Tenses, syntax and grammar. Right? This is how you learn a normal language. Normal language. It can be any language, let's say English, Hindi, Marathi, Punjabi, right? Tamil, Telugu, right? Any, right, language you learn this way only. Right? This is the way, this is the sequence to learn. Right? In the similar sequence, we are also going to learn a programming language. Programming language. Right? We are going to learn programming language in a similar way. Right? So we will start with first, that is character. Right? It can be integer, it can be a float, it can be a string. So that is what we call it as data type. I will talk about this in detail. No need to worry about that. And then we will move ahead with variables. Right? Variables. Right? Actually, how, right, data type, right, can become a variable. So we are also going to look at it. So for example, a string can be a variable. How? We will discuss that. A number cannot be variable. We will discuss that. Right? Then we will move ahead slowly with statements. Statements. Right? Statements like conditional statement. This will be part of, I guess, next lecture. So conditional statement, loops, right? So we are going to look at this. So what is this data type? Right? I can simply say character. Right? Variable, this can be called as words. What is this statement? This is nothing but a sentence or a statement in a normal language. That's the understanding. This is how we are going to learn things in a very easy way. But one more thing, right? When I am talking, you are understanding things, right? Right. So you are understanding things because of a reason that you understand English. Right? We have some environment. Right? But let's say there is a machine. So let's say this is a programming machine, or let's say computer. Right? let's say this is a computer, right? So let's say this is a computer, right? Now, let's say if you speak something to a computer. So let's say you speak something to a computer, anything, right? So let's say you say, hey, do the calculation 2 plus 3. Do you think that machine will understand that? The answer to your question is no, machine will not understand this. So let's make a better diagram so that I can explain you in a very better way. So let's say here it is computer, right? Let's say here it is a computer. Very good. Right. Here it is a computer, right? Computer. Now, if you say anything here, let's say if you say anything, right? Right. Very good. You are saying anything that do 2 plus 3, right? Do 2 plus 3. Do you think that computer will understand this? Right. The answer is no. Even if you go to some other place, let's say you go to Maharashtra and you don't know Marathi, right? Then what will happen, right? If you say something, the people will not understand. Then maybe you will have to take some translator with you, right? Similarly, whenever you speak something, computer doesn't understand anything, right? So let's say you spoke something, right? And computer didn't understood this. Why? Because machine always understands binaries. That is only 1 and 0. Binary means by means 2. Only 2 value, 1 and 0. Now what will happen, right? Now what will happen? So you spoke something, computer didn't understood. So what you can do to make a computer to understand? So for that, you will be having a translator. So this is a translator. This is a translator. So this is a translator, right? Right. This is a translator. Right. So I will just write a small word here, translator, because this is not the exact word used. But to understand, let's try to understand this in a very common language. Then we will move to technical words. So this is a translator, right? Now you spoke something, it comes to translator. Translator translates into 1 and 0, and then computer understands this and do the task. So the main aim of the translator is to convert whatever instructions that you have given, a combination of 1 and 0. Whatever you say walk and go away. It will translate this walk and go away to some 1 and 0, right? Some combination of 1 0, 1 0 0 0, 1 0 0 0 1 0, something like that. And then it will be passed to the computer to do some computation or task. This is the understanding. Now this is a translator in a real world. But actually this step is called as compilation or interpretation. So you can just say this is a compiler or interpreter. Compiler or interpreter. This step is called as, or this is called as compiler or interpreter, right? And this particular step is called as compilation. Compilation or interpretation. Interpretation. Compilation or interpretation, right? Now what does this step do, right? This actually converts English code to binary numbers, right? So if you have to define, because let's say in the interview someone asks you what is compilation or what is interpretation, then how will you answer? So let's say compilation / interpretation. Then how will you answer this, right? Simple. A way to convert English code to binaries. A way to convert English code to binaries, right? This is called as compilation step or interpretation step, right? Because why do you so? Why you do so? Right? Because our processors, machine processors, computer processors only understands the binary number, understands the binary number, the binary number. But now you must be thinking, right? What is the difference between compilation and interpretation? What is the meaning of this? To be honest, both are same, right? Both are same. Little bit of difference is there. What is difference? I will just talk about that in detail, so no need to worry about that. So let's say here we have compiler. So we have compiler, and then we have interpreter, right? Right. So what is the difference? Right. Let's try to understand this. What is the difference between both of them? Right. So compiler actually compiles or translates the complete script in one go. So for example, let's say you have this particular code, right? So let's say some code 1, some code 2, right? Code 3, right? Written on a script. This is called as a script, let's say, right? So this compiler will actually compile everything in one go. Example, JavaScript, right? This you might have worked with C or C++, right? But what is interpreter, right? What is interpreter? Right? It will compile the code or interpret the code line by line. So first of all, compiles the code line by line. This is the understanding. It compiles the code line by line, right? So here, let's say this is again code 1, code 2, code 3, right? Now what will happen? So it will compile this first, then this line first, second, then this line third, something like this. Right. So here the code is compiled line by line. Example, Python. Right. So code is actually compiled line by line, and this is actually interpreted. So first it is compiled, then interpreted by PVM. That is called as Python virtual machine, PVM. So that's why Python is called as interpreted language. Right? Even if you just Google it out, you will realize that how Python actually interpret the language. So basically, if I have to make a diagram, right, then let's say it is you. Let's say you are here. You told some English language. Then it is, let's say, line wise line compiled, right? Compiled line wise line, line by line, and then it is interpreted by PVM. Right? Interpreted means in terms of 1 and zeros, right? So line by line. So this is the understanding of interpreter. So Python is an interpreted programming language, right? So this is the understanding. Now, very good, we understood this. Now what happens sometimes, right? Sometimes what happens, you want something to be done by machine. So let's say you, and you want your machine to do something. Let's say machine or computer, right? Very good. Whatever you say, it will be compiled. But for better usability, right? So for better usability, right? And convenience, right? Or just use one word, better usability. Python also provides you keywords. What are these keywords? Right. So keywords are some special words by Python. Right. These are some special words by Python which Python can understand that okay, this particular thing has to be done. Right. So for better usability, Python also provides you keywords. Right. Obviously, everything will be compiled. Right. Everything will be compiled. Right. Whatever you will be writing in the machine. But there are some keywords that can be understood by Python. So for example, let's say if, example, if, else, right, and so on, and so on. There can be multiple. There are at least 32. I will show you, right? So these are Python keywords. So what is a keyword? Just write predefined syntax. Predefined syntax. Very simple. Predefined syntax. How to use? You will understand the complete picture once this video is completed, right? So this is the understanding, right? Right. So these are there are some predefined syntax, right, which is used by Python to interpret something, right? So let's start now directly to the practical implementation of things. I will again come back to this notepad once more because I have to also discuss all the data types one by one. But before that, let's try to look at some keywords and then slowly we will move ahead. So let's start. So let's say we have, just a second guys. So we have something, let's say Jupyter notebook. So here Jupyter notebook I have. Now in this, first of all, I will start with some basic things and then we will move ahead slowly, right? So here, let's say I am just writing as usual, this we have seen a lot of many times, right? So I'll just open my one pen as well. So just a second. So my pen, I have opened it. So this is something that we have seen a lot of time in many of the programming languages, that always we start with some print statement, right? So let's try to look at and see what is the print statement. So let's say here, I will just write here print hello world. So let's say we'll start with print hello world. So print hello world, right? Print hello world. Very good. So we started with print hello world, right? So what is print? I will talk about this in detail. So print hello world. So here, whatever you have written, it has been now printed, right? So this is the meaning of print hello world, right? Very good. Now, right? So far so good that we have printed something. But now you must be wondering, what is this print, right? It is a keyword. Is it a keyword? So basically print is a inbuilt function. Print is a inbuilt function. It's not a keyword. It's not a keyword. It's not a keyword, right? Many people think that this is a keyword. Many of the time it is used also. Many of the time I have also used that print is a keyword, but actually print is a built-in function, right? So that is the understanding. Actually, if I talk about history, then in Python 2, right, it was a statement. Print was a statement, in Python 2, right? In Python 2, and then, right, in Python 3, it became a function, and currently this is Python 3. So, and in Python 3, it becomes a function. Python 3, it became a function. So that is something we understand or we know, right? But anyway, that's not the whole idea. You have written your first program, print hello world, right? And in this hello world, what has been done? So here, whatever you had written inside this got printed here, right? In the last lecture, in the last video already, we have discussed what is this interface called, how you can execute things. So if you haven't watched the previous video, you can just go ahead and watch the previous video of this particular 30 days of Python playlist. So whatever you provide here, so let's say print right? Print, let's say any name, right? Let's say Monjolika will kill you. Monjolika will kill you, right? So what will happen, right? So this is something, Monjolika will kill you. So it will get printed. Whatever you provide, it will get printed. But now we discussed about keywords, right? So keywords. What is keywords? Keywords, right? If I have to discuss what is a keyword again, so these are the reserved word, right? Reserved Python, reserved Python words, right? Words that has a specific meaning, right? Right? Meaning, and cannot be used, meaning, and cannot be used as a variable. What is a variable? I will discuss this everything in detail. No need to worry about that. Now, this we have discussed that there are some reserved keywords. But how to get these keywords? Simply write help and just provide keywords. So if you just do help and keywords, then you will get all the keywords out here. So here is a list of Python keywords, right? False, none, true, and as, right? You will not find print here. So print is actually inbuilt function, right? And that's why you will not find it. So these things, right? I have discussed it, right? This will be very important going forward from next lecture, next video, and so on. But yes, you have to keep this in mind that these are the keywords. Now moving ahead to the most important thing of this lecture, right? So as we had discussed, right? So we will start learning first characters, words, statements, and then we will slowly move ahead. So let's start understanding the basic things, right? So here, the first thing that we are going to understand is the character and words, right? So this is also called as object, right? Object or data type, right? What is the meaning of this object and data type, right? So I will discuss about this, right? So object, if I talk about object, right? So in this world, right? So let's say we have a pen, that's an object. We have a copy, that's an object. This is a laptop, this is an object. So in world, everything is an object. I can be also an object for someone, right? Similarly in Python, everything is an object. In Python, right? In Python, everything is an object. Everything is an object. Right? Object. Now, so object can be of different types, right? So someone is like, stationery, pen, copy, something like that, right? Something is electronics. Similarly in Python as well, right? Object is of different types. Right? So what you do in programming, you provide some data, do computation, right? So to understand the type of object, we have something called data type. That's it. To know the type of object. Now the question is to know the type of object. Right? Now, what are different types of object? So let's try to understand this, right? So we have different bifurcations. I don't think you should remember anything. It will come with practice, and we will be seeing the Jupyter Notebook implementation as well, right? The first one is numeric. Now, obviously you understand whichever are numbers, that is a numeric data type. It can be of integer, right? It can be float, it can be complex, right? Then we have some different type of data type, right? So here I will just write again different type, sequence types. So here we have string, list, tuples. Right. This will come under data structure. We will discuss this in detail in the upcoming videos. Then we have mapping types. Mapping types. That is dictionary. Dictionary. Then we have set types. So let's say set types. Set types. Here we have set and frozen set. Frozen set. Then we have something called Boolean type, right? Something called Boolean type, right? Boolean type. Boolean type. Boolean means only true and false. So let's say true, false. And finally, we have none type. None type. None type simply means null value. It is nothing. So we will discuss one by one everything. But before understanding this, right, you need to understand a very simple thing, that everything in Python is an object. Everything in Python is object. Object. Right. Right. And then whatever data structures that we have seen, right, few of them are called as basic data structure. Sorry, basic data types. Data types. For example, the native one that is used by everyone, or that is understandable, right? Simple data types, right? That is integer, float, right? Complex, Boolean, right? Boolean, right? Non-type, right? But there are some advanced data structures as well, right? Data type. So advanced data types. That is also called as data structure. So that we also are going to look at in detail, right? Data structure. These are what? Strings, list, tuples, dictionaries, sets. So guys, this is overall understanding of data type. Now nothing can be, other than this, nothing can be there. This is the most important data types, and we have seen everything in detail. Obviously, we have not understood this. One by one, we have to understand. We are going to understand this. So in this lecture, we will start with the basic data types. Try to understand this, right? Data structure, we are going to look at in the upcoming lectures, right? So let's start one by one understanding everything in detail and directly on the Jupyter notebook. So we are going to see the practical implementation directly, right? So now, first thing we have understood that what is a keyword. If you want to print something, you can do that. So let's start, right, understanding, discussing things slowly, and then we will dive deep into this. So let's say A is equals to 2. If you are writing A is equals to 2, what is the meaning of this? Meaning is very simple. You are saying that this 2 value is actually assigned to A. So here, if you just print it now, A is 2, right? So what is this A? Now, obviously, you must be thinking, Ajay, I know this is an integer. Very good. You know this integer. But how do Python interpret this? How will you know? So for that, again, we have something called type. So if you just do type, right, then you will get to know this is an integer. Again, what is a type? Right? Type is again an inbuilt Python function that talks about what is the data type. So this is an integer. Similarly, let's say B is equals to 3.1. Right? What is the data type? So just write type of B. So the moment you write type of B, it will show you that it is a float. What is a float? Which can take any value on a scale. 3.1, 3.111 and so on. Right? So this is a float. Now, very good. Let's say we have C is equals to, right, my favorite actress, not actress, my favorite ghost, let's say Monjolika, right? C is equals to Monjolika. What is this? This is actually called as a string in Python. So string, right? So if you have multiple characters together like Ajay, right, or something like Monjolika, right, all of these are called as string, right? So now if you just do type of C here, if you just do type of C, then it will be a string. So just do it type of C. So if you, the moment you do type of C, you will find that this is a string. See, str means string, right? Now again moving ahead. So let's say we have D is equals to true, right? Right. One thing, try to see this. String was on double quotes. See, here it is double quote. Can it be a single quote? The answer is yes. I can just show you that as well. So D is equals to Monjolika, right? Monjolika. So if you see type of D, again you will find this is a string. So don't get confused that only double quote can be there. So you can find this double quote on your keyboard from shift, and beside your enter key you will find double quote and single quote, right? You can do from there, right? But anyway, so D is equals to Monjolika, again this is. Now next data type. So let's say here I have written E is equals to true. Here you don't have any double quote or single quote. So Python by default understands this, that this is actually a Boolean value. So you can just write type of E. So type of E is actually here, if you just write it here, bool. It means true and false, Boolean value. Right. We will talk about this, how true false is stored in Python. We'll discuss everything, right? Right. Now another number, let's say f is equals to some value 3 plus 6j, right? 3 plus 6j, right? Now if you just do type of f, then it will be complex. This is a complex. Now what is a complex number? Already you might have understood, you might be knowing that. So let's say this is a coordinate system, this is a data point. So let's say this is your 3 and let's say this is your 6. So this is called as j, 6j and 3i in mathematics, and this is called as 3i plus 6j. This is the interpretation. But in Python you can just directly write 3 plus 6j. It means a complex number, right? Now let's move ahead. So let's say f is there. So now in this part, 3 is known as real number, 6 is known as complex number. So what you can do, just write f dot real. The moment you do f dot real, you will find it is 3, and the moment you do f dot complex, right, f dot complex, or imaginary, then you will find the imaginary value. One more thing guys, if you might be looking at, once I written f dot I, what I did, I hit a tab. So if you hit a tab, you will get the complete value imaginary. So Python understands that okay, it has to be imaginary value, right? So anything, you just write dot and just hit tab, any function is there and you just do it, then all the, actually this is, let's say variable. I will come to the variable. So as of now, don't worry about what is a variable, but as of now just understand this. If there is something and if you are using dot, if you just hit tab, you will understand what are other functions associated with this particular variable. I will come to this again at later stage, but this is the understanding. Now let's say g is equals to none. So what is this none? Let's try to look at this as well. Type of g. So the moment you write type of g, you will realize it is a none type. This is a none type. Now we have understood a little bit of introduction to different data types, right? So we have understood so far. Now moving ahead, let's try to understand few more things. So for example, let's say I have been saying about variable. What is a variable? So let's try to understand this, right? So for example, what is a variable? Right? So whenever you are writing like D is equals to Monjolika, that is actually a variable, right? Variable is also called as identifier. Identifier of what? Object. Right. So if I have to define variable, so a placeholder or container to store the data slash object, right? Object, so that it can be used. That's it. Right. So that it can be reused. Right. So this is the understanding. Actually, how does variable is created? I will talk about everything. Right. So what is a variable? A placeholder or container to store the data object so that it can be reused. Right. Now identifier, the general name of a variable. Right. Identifier can be anything. A variable or a class, right, can be identifier. What is class? Don't worry about that. We will be discussing at a later stage. But this is the understanding. Identifier. What is the meaning of identifier? If you someone says to disintegrate identifier word, it simply means something that helps to identify. Right. So to identify a variable, right, or to identify a class, there should be some name, right, and that name is identifier. Very simple words, right? This is the understanding. Now let's say if you have, so for example, let's say you have written a is equals to 5. So let's say you have written a is equals to 5. So let's say here you have written a is equals to 5. Now what is the meaning of this a is equals to 5? Right. A is equals to 5 simply means a is a variable or identifier. This is the first thing, identifier. Right. So a is a variable or identifier. What is equals to? Equals to is an operator. And then what is 5? 5 is value / literals. This is also called as literals. Right. This is the understanding. Right. And this is how you have defined a variable. So I'll just write the same statement in same thing in a statement so that it will be easy for you guys to remember. So I can just write a is a variable. So let's say a is a variable. A is a variable / identifier. Then you have equals to is an operator, and then let's say 5 is a literal value. 5 is a literal / value. That's the understanding. Right. Now, fine. This is the understanding. This is how you define a variable. Right. What are the rules of defining a variable? We will discuss about that. But here comes a very important concept. Right. If you guys have worked on other programming languages, so what happens in other programming language, in other programming language, what happens? You need to define a variable initially at the start of the program and define data type. Right. So what happens, if you guys remember, you might have seen something like that. Int a, write this. Right. What is this? This is called as static typing. Right. This is called as static typing. This is the understanding. Right. Now, but in Python what happens? You don't have to define this int a at the start of a script. Right. At the start of the program. No. What happens? You just write a is equals to 65. In Python, what happens? In Python, right, wherever needed slash required, you can make a variable. You can make a variable. That's the understanding. This is how it works in Python, right? And this is called as dynamic typing. So I'll just write it here, dynamic typing, right? So dynamic typing. What is dynamic typing? Right. So Python interpreter understands the data type of a variable, automatically. You don't need to define it, right? So for example, let's say here a is equals to 6 or 7. So type of a, here Python will understand that this is an integer, right? You don't need to do this. This is the understanding, right? So let's say b is equals to 7.1. You don't need to say that this is a float. Python will understand this. Type of b is float. This is the understanding. Now, one more term associated with this static typing and dynamic typing is dynamic binding. What is this dynamic binding? Right. So what happens in other programming language, right? If you define a variable, it will store the same data type throughout the program. Right. So the same data type, right? It will store the same data type throughout the program. Right. But when it comes to Python, in Python, right, the declaration can change. Right? Declaration can change. Some variable, right, same variable can store different data types. So that's the understanding, right? So for example, let's say a is equals to Ajay, right? A is equals to Ajay. So now a is equals to Ajay. Fine, that is good. So print a, right? Now same thing, let's say you just do a is equals to bj, right? Then what will happen? So now print b. Then you will realize that now this has been printing, or this has stored now, right? So okay, I have not print b, why have it, I don't know. So a again, so it will be storing bj. So same a, right? Earlier it was Ajay, and then after that, once you initialize it again, this a Ajay became bj, right? So this is called as dynamic binding. Many of the programming languages, you will find that once you declared a variable with a data type, then that will be fixed data type throughout the program. But it doesn't happen in this case of Python. Now moving ahead, so let's say if you want to know what are the rules of defining a variable. So rules of defining a variable slash identifier. How can you do so? Right. First thing, always remember, no keyword or inbuilt function should be the name of variable. It cannot be there. One example, let's say we have print is equals to, let's say Ajay. Let's say you are defining a variable that is print is equals to Ajay. Do you think it will work? Okay, yes, it will work. It will not throw you any error. That is completely fine. See, no any error. But the moment you use print, let's say you want to print now, let's say abracadabra. What do you think? It will get printed? It will throw you an error. See? Right. So never try to use inbuilt function because this is not the best practice. No, that's not the best practice. So now you have to just click on this and then restart kernel. This interface will again be restarted. Now if you execute, then it will run. Abracadabra. Because print earlier here was actually being treated as, right, actually treated as a sum variable, and that is not true. And that's why you were not able to print this. That's the first thing. Second rule, no special character. No special character can be the name of variable. Character can be the name of variable. Name of variable. Example, right? You cannot put something like this. Percent or modulo A is or percent A equals to, let's say, RAM. You cannot do this. You cannot do this. This is not actually allowed in Python. You cannot do like, and is equals to 23. No, right? You cannot do something, dollar is equals to 5, something like that. No, you cannot do. This is not allowed. You cannot say, cap or hat is equals to 34. No, special characters are not allowed. Next rule, no integer and float at the start of a variable name. You cannot do this as well, right? So for example, 2 is equals to, right, RAM. You cannot do so. Or 2.1 is equals to robot. Okay, so you cannot do so. This is wrong. In fact, you cannot also do like this. One name is equals to Rahul. No, you cannot do. This is not allowed in Python. Then what are the things that is allowed in Python? Then there comes the rule, use underscore, score or strings. Right. So for example, name is equals to Ajay. Right. You can use this. Right. Or let's say underscore name is equals to Ajay. Right. You can define something like this. Right. See here, underscore name, it works. You can do like this, name underscore 1 is equals to Ajay. It also works. Ajay. Right. It also works. Name 1 is equals to Ajay. Integer and float at the start is not allowed, but at the end it is allowed. See, right? So let's say location is equals to let's say Mumbai. Done. See, location is allowed. Right? So you can just do like this. So you can directly use underscore is equals to, let's say, ball. Yes, done. So if you just do this, you will find it ball. Right? You cannot add or subtract something like this. Add or subtract in variable name. Subtract in variable name. Variable name. You cannot do so. How? Let's say A minus BC is equals to RAM. You cannot do. You cannot say data plus AI is equals to, let's say, career craft. You cannot do so, right? You cannot also write something like that. You cannot have space while defining a variable, right? Let's say, no, you cannot do so. If you have to define it, then use maybe underscore. So something like this, career underscore craft. Then it is a valid variable name, right? This is a valid variable name. So that is the understanding, right? So this would be all for this lecture, right? Now I will give you some interview questions for this particular lecture. So interview questions, right, that you should, right, interview questions, right. First, what is static and dynamic typing? Static and dynamic typing. This is the first thing. Second, what is, how variables are stored, how, okay, this will be your extra mile. So extra mile, right? How variables are stored. Just try to figure it out, how variables are stored in a processor. Try to figure it out, how the memory management is done. We are anyway looking at this, we'll look at this into detail, right? What is a variable? What is a variable and its type? Variable and its type. So this is important, right? Extra miles also try to learn more about interpreted language, interpreted and compiler, right, language, interpreter and compiler language. So this can also be interpreter and compiler language. This can also be asked in the interview. So to be very honest, I will just remove this. So all of these are the interview questions, right? Which is the fast, or let's say first, which is dynamic, what is dynamic binding? What is dynamic binding? This can also be asked. What is dynamic binding? And which is faster, interpreted language? I will just cite it, which is faster, interpreted language or compiler language? Again, this is your extra mile question. Try to figure it out, right? So that would be all for this lecture. Thank you everyone. Like and subscribe this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, share as much as you can. You might be finding it a lengthy video, but to cover everything, it has to be, go lengthy. And obviously, we have covered everything in depth, right? Thank you everyone. Bye-bye.